Hi, I'm Shannon Torrance, and you're listening to or watching Magic is Real. Today I interviewed Janet Tarantino. Janet is a 3-time near-death experiencer and the author of the book Dying to See. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more like it, you can support this project by liking, subscribing, and sharing with friends. Thank you so much. Now here's my interview with Janet Tarantino. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Shannon Torrance, and you are watching or listening to Magic is Real. Today, I am so happy to bring to you Janet Tarantino, coming to us from Colorado. Janet is a near death experiencer, and she is the author of a book called Dying to See. Janet, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to speak with you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm thrilled.
Me
Well,
too. It's
this
such
is
a
one of my favorite subjects.
Mine too, as it happens. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time and your sharing your story. I really hope to bring, but the purpose of doing this is to share hope with people and to let them know that there is more than what we see here in Earth School. So first, I want to talk to you about you as a human being. And if you can tell us about anything you're comfortable sharing about your childhood, your former, perhaps like religious attitudes, what were you doing with your life? Who were you before your near death experience?
I grew up in Iowa, and my parents were Lutheran, and they went to church every week, pretty much. Um, and they did put us in Sunday school. I have two brothers and a sister. My brothers were twins; they're 2 years older than I am, and we didn't want to go because we went to school all week and we wanted our weekends, for fun. And so we would whine. And eventually we whined enough where they did let us stay home. They figured we could make up our own minds about what we wanted to follow. And mine was playing outside, that I was communing with the creator in that way. I had never thought much about death because during that time frame I was so young. I knew there was something greater. I just internally knew there was something greater, but I didn't know what it was. Um, God or Jesus or whoever. I just knew there was something larger than we think. So I carried out my life and then grew up. And when I started in the office area, I was in an accounting firm, and then I went to snack food companies and had a long career with a major and now international snack food company, and I was their network coordinator. And I was good with figures, and I could analyze traffic flow and the cost of the traffic to get the product to the location. And my whole job was analyzing routes and setups and get product for in the trailers to get the product to the customer in the least amount of cost. And I did that for many years. And now I'm retired and I'm doing this.
Well, how wonderful. It sounds like you really enjoyed your career, but I think
I did.
it's also so wonderful to. I think we can give our gifts in so many different ways. It doesn't matter whether you're an artist or marketing professional or a tailor, whatever it is. I think that you can find so much joy in that. But I also know from personal experience that at a certain time, sometimes we really seek to do more to be of service in different ways from a soul place. And it's often happens because of some kind of spiritual awakening or just kind of our age. I'm now middle aged and I'm starting to find that as much as I've really enjoyed a lot of what I've done, it's so fun to be able to do something that's just more heart centered and more based on connecting with others and sharing some sort of a supportive message. So, um, with all that in mind, what happened that brought you to this place? How did it all begin for you?
Well, it was a series, but um, when you're young, I had a near death experience when I was 15. And I didn't realize what it was. Of course, I didn't know about any of these things because there wasn't any information out there, nor was I in the spiritual community. I was working my job, and I pushed that aside, as kids do. I saw a sumo wrestler through a tunnel of clouds, and a beautiful uh, music box lady came swooping down into this other opening on the right side of the room. So I was looking into two worlds. Um, the sumo wrestler was watching me, just simply watching me. And the other beautiful lady was talking to him. And I was so interested in fashion at the time because I had worked a summer job to save up money for high school clothing. And so that was the big time, for us. This was dating time and school activities, and I wanted to get involved. So I um, pushed it aside. I then I grew up when it was in my snack food company job. Then I got in an accident, a car accident, where my car was totaled. I was rear-ended by a truck and pushed into the vehicle in front of me. The interesting and fascinating thing, that's where everything started to, it's like he was knocking on my door. At first time I discounted it. This time he was knocking again, a little bit harder. And um, I didn't have my seatbelt on because I was just going home from the flower nursery, and I was going to do it on my way. And I was only a block away, and had been adjusting my music and listening to that. But this car was stopped at the bottom of the hill, uh, no lights, no street there. He was just stopped. And it was a 3-lane road going that direction, 3 lanes going the other direction. I stopped behind him, um, and, and originally there weren't any other cars around, so there was of no concern. And then all of a sudden the lights changed at the top of the hill, and all these cars came barreling down the 3 lanes. They were all filled. And I knew, because the gentleman that was behind me was looking to his right. I don't know what was there, or if he was, I don't really have no idea what he was looking at. I knew he didn't see me, and I knew he was going to hit me. So in my mind, I said, oh God, he's going to hit me. And I knew I didn't have time to get my seatbelt on. So then I heard a voice. I'm the only one in the car. And it said, lay down across the seat and cover your face. So I did. And then the first collision, him hitting me, uh, felt like a bump of somebody bumping the side of your bed. It was very gentle. I thought that wasn't so bad. And I started to bring my hands down, and then I saw the window above me shattering in slow motion. It was actually beautiful. It was like a beautiful piece of art. And I covered my face again because I knew it was going to rain on me with that glass. And so then all of a sudden I felt a huge arm come under my knees, another huge arm come under my shoulders, and I was lifted up by something that I couldn't see. And it was like a carrying a child to their room. You're carrying them that way. But then I was above the scene in a looking through to this dimension through a hole in a cloud, but there wasn't any clouds in the sky. The cloud was caused by the other dimension. I was looking in from the other way, and I was accompanied by spiritual beings that I knew were there, but I was more focused on the accident scene. Um, then I was snapped back into my body after the collision stopped, and I saw a person run across the road to the car to help, because they were going in the opposite direction, which was the direction to the hospital. So there was a lot of medical facilities in that direction. And I was snapped back into my body, and I was in the front seat, laying across the seat. And they said the person that stopped was a lady, and she said she's been thrown around the car. The seats are laid down. And a gentleman asked me, he said, were you? And I said, no, because I was back in the front seat. Well, I didn't realize I had been, because after looking at the accident, the car, it was the rear window that shattered, not the front window. The front window was still intact. So as you can imagine, after that car hit me and I was pushed into the other one, and I thought I was going to go through the windshield, but not. Um, those angelic beings who took me up must have had assistance to manage my body to get me back in the very same place that I was in the first place.
Wow.
And then I thought about that, but who are you going to tell? Who is going to believe you? You know, so I kept it quiet. Then I went through the greatest ambush ever. I call it the ultimate ambush makeover. And during this time frame, I was felt like I was being erased. I didn't know what was happening. I started to stutter. I couldn't write. I couldn't do math anymore. Everything was gone. I was shaking, so I couldn't write uh, letters or notes or even sign my name. But what was shown in the third near-death experience that I'll talk about next was where I was being made over. They showed me a under construction sign during that time frame, because in the Bible it says, "I will save you, and you will honor me." So he was making me over into the person that was going to honor him, and so I started felt a need to go to church, which I hadn't gone to since I was a child. And I chose churches that were, that the speakers were more of a enthusiastic about life and encouragement, uplifting. They weren't, scolding people for not tithing or whatever. It was really a fun church to go to. Then I went during the third near death experience. My husband and I moved out to the country because he liked the country life, and it was close enough for me to drive into work. And so I had developed an allergy one summer into fall season, and I thought it was something that would go away, but it didn't. And I was taking allergy pills when I went in at night to clear up my sinuses, because I thought it was I had been working with hay because he had horses, or mowing the lawn. And I thought maybe I had developed an allergy to hay and to cats, because we had cats outside, most farms do. And I wasn't aware that it was inside that was bothering me. And this particular night, I went to bed after taking my allergy pills, and I propped 3 pillows up on top of each other. So I was at a 45-degree angle so I could breathe better. And I always uh, sleep on my back with my hands over my tummy. So my husband and I fell asleep, and in the middle of the night, my chest started to hurt, and I couldn't get up. So I reached for my husband and I asked him, I reached for him, and I didn't feel him. And so I called him. I said, "Gavin, help me, please help me." And he didn't respond. Then all of a sudden I was up at the ceiling looking down on my body, and that of my husband beside me. But the interesting thing was my hands were still over my tummy, and I was still on my back in that sleeping position. So it was my spirit arm that reached for him, and it was my spirit voice that called for him. And that's why he didn't feel it and he didn't hear it, because most people can't hear us from the other side of the dimension. So I was, I had felt like I was finally set free. It was the most uh, beautiful experience and a breath of fresh air, because I felt like I had been compacted into something that I needed to get out and expand. And so I was surrounded in blackness, which made sense because it was the middle of the night. And um, I was in floating in love, peace, and tranquility that can't be described here on earth. And I was being connected to the universe. I was beginning to be kind of connected consciously to the bigger picture. And I knew that this, what was happening was perfect and is happening as it should be. And that I had been here many times before. I floated in that darkness, kind of like on my back, like I was in a pool. And I saw a silver cord float by from left to right. And I didn't know what that was. And I didn't know where it was connected. So I disregarded that. And then I saw something else coming from the left, right. It was a light that was coming from the right, and it was kind of moving in an S-shaped fashion. And I don't know if you ever saw the cartoon, The Roadrunner.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay, that's the way it was coming.
Yeah.
And but I wasn't worried about it. Wasn't I wasn't fearful, but because I saw something going on with my body, and that's where my attention was. Because there was something blue lifting out of my feet, then my ankles, and then my shins and up to my thighs. And just by wanting to see that, I was down at my waistline watching this form lift up. Then I was back up at the ceiling again. And I watched it as it exited the body, and then it started to draw up toward me. Well, that's because I was the spirit body that had left the upper part of my body, and I was now watching the rest of my spirit body leave the lower half. And as it grew up to me, we transformed shape. Then I transformed into the shape of an orb. And I felt like I was being held in a wand. And the reason I knew that was because I could feel my energetic arms that had been elongated and floating out to my sides free. They started to pull in, and then my legs that had left the body were pulling up. And then I had a fishbowl effect as I transformed. And, and then my vision became perfect. It's interesting though that I, in human form, I couldn't see. I had to reach for my glasses every morning because I wore contacts during the day. My vision was so bad, but I had perfect vision out of body. And I thought this was awesome. And I was thrilled about everything that was happening. And then this ball of light zipped into the room, just like the roadrunner does in front of Wile E. Coyote, and stopped in the room. And then he grew up into a spiritual being that was infused with light and radiating light. And he had light uh, coming out of his heart center. I also was glowing in the orb transformation. When I was an orb, I was glowing as well. So part of my vision was obscured because of my glow as well. Um, I because of my analytical nature, I looked at the form, and since I couldn't see the face and it had hair down to its shoulders, uh, and I didn't know any men, so it had to have been a woman, so I thought it was a woman, but it had a man's shape. So I thought maybe it's a woman with a stocky build or a man's figure, but it didn't end up being that. That was Jesus. And I didn't know that in this near-death experience because I have more experiences that even come after this. And when he was before me, I was I was just looking at him in awe, and I knew he knew me. I knew he knew everything about me, and I knew he loved me despite my faults, despite my successes. There was nothing that would make me not be perfect in his eyes. But there was another pin of light coming in the same S-shaped fashion off from the left through the darkness. And it started to come forward, and then it grew as it came, and it turned into a living light. And it had the appearance of a tunnel because of the cloud shape, the clouds bubbling around it. And but I could feel the colors coming out of it, even though I couldn't see them. They were there. And Jesus held his hand out to me and he said, "It's time to come home, Jan." And my first thought was of my daughter, Gina, and how she would react to my death, because we're close. We're kind of on the same spiritual journey, but in different ways. And she was in my first near death experience. That's who the music box lady was, because I thought of her as daddy's little girl at that time. And I didn't realize it until later. And he said, "She'll be okay." I didn't have to ask him. He knew my thoughts. "She'll be okay." Afterwards, I told my daughter what he said, and she very strongly disagreed with him, as you know, kids do. So I was going to go. I was floating now toward that living light, which was God. And his hair was kind of going across his chin, Jesus going across his chin all during this time. So I think it was the light. We were in the tunnel. It was the light that was the second light that was sucking us toward him, because that's where his hair was going. His hair was being pulled, and I was being gently pulled and sucked into the tunnel. And when I was just about there, Jesus was God, the energetic God. It reached out his rainbow arms and he embraced me. And when he embraced me, he told me I was perfect in every way. And he showed me moments of my life. Some moments I recognized. These were in many movies, and some I did not. And he told me, "Understand these moments, they matter." Well, as you can imagine, I wanted to understand him on, in heaven, and I wanted to go. So then he released me, and angels came and they took my elbows. I had then transformed from the orb shape into a form of a human, and the angels gently touched my the upper arm behind above the elbow, and they lifted me clear up in the air above the ranch, and everything had melted away, so I could see inside the ranch and outside the ranch. And then I also could see all the land in all directions, and there was a two pins of light coming up the road in the distance. We and my focus, all of a sudden, not me, but I felt like I was in the vehicle, because I could feel it crunching the tires, and I could hear the crunch, like my ear was exactly right next to the tires as it rolled over. I even had the vision from the where he was going, because I was like, it was right down near the tire, watching it go down the road. And then I was back up in the air again, looking down on my body and my husband beside him. And I could still feel that the vehicle going up the road that turned in onto our drive. We since we lived out in the country, there was a quarter-mile driveway to our house, and it was gravel. So that they had turned down that. There was one place that was a lower area that when we had a lot of rain, it would wash out and we'd keep having to repair it. Well, when it hit that gully, I could feel the lurch of, and it was an ambulance. The lurch of the ambulance as it went over, that I still could hear the tires, like my ear was next to him. I could hear the clanging of the equipment as it shook in the vehicle, yet I was still up in the air. So I was in all places at all times. Uh, the important thing is when I saw my spirit leave my body, I knew internally that that was my portion of God's spirit, the Holy Spirit, that we each have a sliver of him, and that is our spirit. And we are connected to him through the silver cord, which I find out later.
Mm.
And they were showing me, actually, the ambulance went up to the house where the floodlight was on, because obviously my husband had discovered my not breathing, because he was now in the living room. And they hurried in through the kitchen and into the bedroom. And I couldn't see what they were doing. I just knew that I was dead. I was, I was, I was dead now, and I was going to continue to stay dead. And I was okay with that. So then they were trying to convince me to stay here on earth. This is what was happening. And then all of a sudden I was down on the precipice of going into the light again. That's where my intention was. And I was shown one more image. That image was my middle son, Kurt. And I knew something was going to happen to him in the future. And if I wasn't there to help him, he would go down a different pathway that wouldn't be good for him. So that's when I said, I'm not ready to go to Jesus. And he nodded his head and he was smiling. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his smile. So then I turned back into the blue spirit body that I was when I was when I was coming out. And I sat down in Jan's body, and I slipped one spirit leg into one side and another spirit foot into the other side, just like you would a piece of clothing. And then I grabbed my spirit knees and I rocked back and forth like kids do, like a rocking horse, until I could get up enough momentum to lay down and help her sit up and grasp for air. She did. She knew she wasn't ready to die. She cried, and then she had to worry about when the other shoe was going to drop for her son, Kurt. And then all these strange after effects started happening. But as I sat down in my body, I heard this message echoing over and over from heaven. And it's not only for me, it's for everybody. Love is the only thing that matters. And it kept echoing, love is the only thing that matters, as I got back in. And it echoes in my soul every day. When I make a decision, I'm thinking, is this the best way for me to make my decision? Is this the showing the love that I need to share? So it's separated me also from the body, because now my whole view of life, death, and consciousness had been changed. It was shattered, and now I knew we are spirit beings living in a physical body, and we are also our consciousness holds our memories even while it's out of the body. The brain may handle the functions of the physical body, but it is the consciousness within the spirit, that's housed within our spirit, that handles our spirit. And we know who we are. I knew who my daughter was. I knew who my son was. So we retain these memories. And this was because I knew something was going to happen with Kurt, and I knew I had to be there. I knew that because I must have had some kind of contract with him. And I also later discovered that, that my daughter, when I was trying to understand all these moments, I realized it was my daughter. And she had come to talk to my guide because she wanted me to get back in my body. Because if I had died that night, she wouldn't be born. And she wanted to be born. And I wasn't going to be get pregnant or have her until 15 years later. Now I must have been aware of what the connection, what their talk was, but it might have been erased from my mind because I thought of her as daddy's little girl. And uh, if I had known, then I'd always wonder if I'm picking the right man to be this person's daughter. I just needed to live my life and it would come together. So, and the when the music box lady and the sumo wrestler left, they transformed into orbs of light and left, went around the house. I could see through the walls, just like I had x-ray vision, and they watched me through the side window. Then one of them left, which must have been my daughter, because the sumo wrestler always watched me. Um, and then she came back, and then they both left. And then I got back in my body. So um, I had a contract with her to be her mom. So we do have soul contracts to work with people. And I think it's absolutely amazing that we do. And after near death experiences, the communication doesn't end. Um, you're open, your uh, sonar is there to pick up things. And then one night, I've had several other experiences, but one night um, I was in Austria with my boyfriend, and we had had a great day, and I went to bed and read like I normally do. And then uh, while I was sleeping, I was taken up to heaven, into the whiteness of heaven, the ethers, and there were spiritual beings there. It was a panel of beings that was there. 8 to 12, I'm not sure, but there was a number of them. Anyway, uh, I knew I knew them, and they knew me, and they said, "Have you learned anything about judgment?" I said, "Yes, I had," because they knew I had. They had knew I had learned, because I had judged some people when I was a child and made assumptions about them. I didn't like my neighbor's dad because of the swimming suit he wore. Wasn't like my dad's. And uh, I had heard things about my grandfather. They had said he was an alcoholic, but I never saw him with a drink in his hand. And he was never drunk that I was aware of. And when I grew up, then I realized he became a bartender and had never had a drink again. Now, how can an alcoholic just quit like that once they're a bartender? That doesn't ordinarily happen. And then while I was evaluating this stuff, he was in World War II. And did he have post-traumatic stress disorder while he was, before he had a job? Was he depressed because he didn't have a job and had post-traumatic stress disorder and was treating it in that fashion? So I realized that none of us know, and my mom didn't even know he was in the war. I was the one that told her. I said, yes, he was. He was in World War II. Uh, we don't know what makes a person who they are. Just like me, I kept all these things quiet my entire life until another incident happens. Um, but while I was in with this panel of beings, I when they told me to explain how I learned. Well, in the meantime, I had met Bob. I had not known him before, but there was a psychic medium that said that before I even met him, said that she sees people from Europe looking over at me. I didn't know anybody in Europe, and I had no intentions of going out of the country. But then on this social website, I get a message from this man asking if I would, practice English with him and write back and forth. So I thought that was harmless enough. So I did, and we started having conversations through um, the chat area. And it took him a while. So I would write him something, and then I'd tell him I'm going to go have shopping with my daughter. And then we always stopped at Starbucks for a cup of coffee on the way home, read our horoscopes and stuff like that. And when I get back, he'd ask me about the coffee. But after a period of time, he had said, I'd really like to meet you, even if I just fly in for a cup of coffee. And and so I said, you can't do that. You stay, and see the area for a week. I'll show you whatever you want to see. Well, he did come, ended up staying for 3 weeks, and then came back 2 months later and stayed for a month. And then we've been flying back and forth every 3 months for 13 years now. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but they arranged him to come into my life. Um, they made it known that they brought him into my life to love me, to take me places to where I would learn that I had misjudged, because I didn't learn I had misjudged till I went over to Europe. And then I realized that the neighbors had friends from um, Hungary. And so they probably are from, we're all immigrants from somewhere. Their lifestyle must have been from there. And my grandfather was from Norway. And after being over there, they socialize. They have tables all over, little huts where you can share a glass of wine or a glass of beer with your friends. And was his drinking because that was his way he learned it for socializing? Um, I don't know. So as I showed them how I had learned, these memories played out through the heavens. And my neighbor, as he walked by me, my full length of body was only up to his calf, the lower calf. That's how big these memories were. So and they were just kind of all playing out all around me. And after I was done, the they were so happy. And another reason they brought Bob into my life is because I don't know technology, and he does. Uh, so he was brought into my life to help me with the mission and of what I was supposed to do, um, and he helps me in many ways. Uh, and it was also for him as well, because he's a federal investigator over there, and he deals with facts. So when he came over here and I told him my story, he discounted it. He didn't believe me. But then after time went on, and he came and would spend time here, and I was collecting stories for my second book, which will be my second book coming up, other people's near-death experiences, for that, because not everybody wants to write a book, and but they still feel the need to share their story. So I'm offering them that avenue to share it, because um, some of them have said now they feel like their soul has healed a little bit, a sense of accomplishment of what they were supposed to do. So it's, in a way, it is helping them heal too. Um, so when we were together, then my phone burned up. Uh, I lost all my information on it, and he discounted it as old. And then another time we were in the kitchen and the light blew out. You can discount that. Um, but then the TV came on as we were cooking, and I looked at him and, see, I told you. And then we were in the living room watching television, and the lights came on if in the kitchen. Nobody was in there. They had been turned off. And so now he's thinking, it's pretty fascinating. Other than the fact I seem to burn up my computers, because I get all this spiritual energy going, and it kind of, after a period of time, it crashes. My last one had burned up. And so he's had to revamp my computers 4 times in 3 years. And so now he backs up everything on my computer, does 2 backups, one for our place and one for his office, so that it's kind of out of the way. So he's a big advocate of mine. But what really triggered everything was a soul painting that I had done. And the soul painting, do you know what a soul painting is?
I do, but why don't you explain it from
Okay.
your perspective?
Okay. The soul painter, well, I got a coupon, was on a website for a soul painting for 50% off. So my daughter and I went to get one done. And asked permission from us to, uh, for her to connect to our heavenly records. And we, of course, we gave it. And then the gatekeeper of the heavenly records shows in the person's mind eye and through an inner knowing and energy what she's supposed to paint. And so she paint, and the colors are meaningful too. Like a yellow, you're an analytical person. Pink, love. Orange is creativity. There's a lot of different meanings for these things, and she would explain them as she was painting it. And then about 15 minutes before she was done, I looked at my daughter and I said, "Do you know what she's painting?" And Gina said, "If she was painting my near death experience." And it's because it's a message from the heavenly records that's meaningful to the person, to the sitter who's with there. I thought she'd paint something blue because I saw my spirit and it was blue. So I thought she would paint something, if she was legitimate, she'd paint something blue, but she painted my near death experience, blew me away. Then
What did it show specifically?
it showed Jesus. It showed Jesus with his hands out in, in a welcoming gesture and the tunnel of light next to it.
That's
And
cool.
uh, and it also had a cherub on the top, because initially when I saw this being, I thought he had wings. But then when I drew it, because I have all the drawings in my book of what I saw, and I thought maybe it was the light that was making it appear like it had wings. But I believe it was the cherub that was with Jesus, who was behind him at the time. That was the wings that I had saw. But I believe orbs come and go in um, orb shape.
Now,
And
I want to talk about orbs. Just before we do that, I would like to ask you, why do you think it is that some people, I mean, I guess, why do some people have near death experiences, period? But I'm more interested in why some people have numerous glimpses into the other realm, into the other dimension. Um, what is it that, I guess my question is it, why does I'm just going to use God for lack of a better term. Some people call it source, universe. Why is it that God specifically sort of sends you these experiences or has you experience these things? Um, or at least, and I know you may only be able to speak for yourself. What was it? Because it looks like when you were younger, um, you were shown a glimpse, you didn't know what that was. And it sounds like it was kind of like, okay, see, it was almost a setup, like just wanted to introduce you slowly. And then this car accident, going to show you a little bit more. And then this allergic reaction. Now we're going to show you the full thing. And then
mhm.
and then I believe after that was when you were brought up to the angels where they had you, the sort of panel of angels.
It was after that. They continue to
Yeah.
be in contact with you.
Right. And so I wonder and you, like I said, you may only be able to speak for you, but what do you think some people have that happen and others don't?
Well, everyone's on a different mission,
Yeah.
a different um, purpose. My purpose was this book, obviously.
Hmm.
And because all these moments that he showed me, uh, one of the first moments that there was two moments when I was a child, but I'm going to tell you about when I was 4. When I was 4, I was pre-kindergarten age, and waiting for everybody to come home from school. I was bored, and I asked my mom, because she was on the phone, they were talking about adoption. So when she got off the phone, I said, "Am I adopted?" Because I didn't understand the conversation. And she said, "No, silly, you're our little girl." Well, so I said, "Okay, but I'm going to die young." And I told her, "I'm going to die young." And she says, "Quit talking like that." But as I said that, I had visions come through my mind of three different ages. And those were the three different ages I had
Mhm.
my near death experiences. So my near death experiences were planned. These were planned to waken me up. And I have a lot of lessons that in my book that are meaningful for everybody. And because I analyzed everything, I went through and all the moments in the future that I was shown, the ones I didn't recognize at that time, have happened. One was the soul painting, one was the panel of beans, one was about my brother Doug, who passed away. Um, and so I go through all these moments in my book, tell what they were, what exactly happened, because I didn't tell everything about my first one. I didn't tell everything about my second one, because there's just so much to tell. And they tie together into a bigger picture of my book of life,
Mm.
basically. But we're not puppets. We have choices. But certain lessons, like the ones mine, would have happened no matter which direction I would have gone. They may have been worse in one direction. And we have that inner spirit that talks to us all the time. We discount it as our thoughts. Um, for example, you leave keys. You walk out the door and you leave your keys, and before you get to your car, you think, "Oh, I got my keys." So you turn around and go back and get them. But it's not that you remembered them. Your spirit put that thought in your mind so that you would go back and get it. You have all kinds of little things pop into your mind, and it's up to you whether or not you accept it, do their guidance, what they're giving you the guidance for, or not. And I've learned to listen to that, and I've learned to utilize it. I'll ask the angels before I get to the grocery store, and I'll ask them, would please, please, would you open up a good parking spot for me? And by the time I get there, there's usually a parking spot open for me, because
Mhm.
it gives them time to make arrangements for it. But if you're in the parking lot, and ask for it, that it can't be manifested that fast. Or I came down to pop some popcorn, and I didn't have any in the kitchen. So I went down to the pantry in the basement to get some. And that day I had been looking for a letter from my uncle. And I wanted to answer it. And uh, I couldn't find it. And so I came up the steps, and I realized when I came down the steps from upstairs, my eyes were drawn to the corner of the table where I had my calendar and a coupon sitting. And when I left to go downstairs, um, my eyes were drawn to that corner again. So I popped the popcorn in the microwave, and I walked over to the corner and I picked up each item one by one. And stuck to the bottom of the coupon was the letter I was looking for, because that's another way they guide us. Your eyes will be drawn to what you're supposed to see. Now it's up to you whether or not you grasp that. So
Yeah, I've been doing that a lot lately. I used to panic if I lost my keys or my phone or whatever it is as I'm going out the door. And now I just say, "All right, guides, angels, show me where it is." And whether you could argue it's because I'm just calming myself enough to focus. I think it's a little bit of both, where I just don't have problems with things like that anymore. I just I'm led right to it, even if it's in the garbage can. It might just be suddenly I feel compelled to open the garbage can and say, "Oh, they fell in there." So I think it's something to keep in mind, to listen to that voice and listen to where you're guided and pay attention. Now, I would love to speak about orbs with you
yeah,
because
let's
I
do
know
that.
that you've got some really cool information. And
Yeah,
before you show me what you have, I have said this on the podcast before, so I don't want to be too repetitive, except for the purpose of explaining to you so we can incorporate it into our conversation. When I was about 13, 14, I turned my light off in my bedroom. A gigantic when I say gigantic, I'm saying a tennis ball because to me that's a gigantic orb that I'm looking at with my naked eye. That's the color of your shirt, but even brighter. As blue, the bluest blue I've ever seen, and it was clearly intelligent. It looked at me. It looked almost it didn't have a face, but it had at the same time it had such a personality, and it hovered over me. It zipped back and forth across the room playfully, and I screamed just because I was taken aback, and at that moment it shot straight up and just disappeared. And I sort of was atheist slash agnostic for much of my life, but then later in life, I'm like, "But then what was that?" And I had several mediums say, "Well, that was spirit guides, that was spirit showing themselves to you because for reference later, because you would become spiritual." Now that really makes sense. But it was sort of like them saying, "Hey, we're here. Just wanted to let you know we're here." And then went away. It was almost like they said, "When you need us, we'll be here." And it took me a little too long to summon I mean, I haven't seen them in that form, but to sort of reconnect with them. But I would love to hear what you think about that, and then I would love for you to talk about orbs from your perspective.
Yeah, I think I agree with her. I think that was your guide, because the guides are always with us, and um, they don't talk to you, you know.
Yeah.
So they're called, and they're angelic watchers. They're even in the Bible, the watcher,
Mhm.
watcher angels. Um, and yeah, getting your attention. That's a great one. Um, yeah, so I
Yeah.
saw something similar. A good way for people to practice that is while you're sitting in your bed or in the living room, put your focus in the middle of the room, not on a wall, not on an item, in the middle of the room, and keep it there. And you'll see that as you stare at that, everything is going to kind of uh, change, and you're going to start to see energy. And then if you can concentrate it on it long enough, you can see little forms in there. Um, and I saw, just like you, I saw an orb the shape of a plum, but it was a white one, and it was floating up next to my bed, coming up the side of my bed, just very gently. And I was reading a book, I was watching it out the corner of my eye, and I know that that was my guide too. And these pictures will show that too, where they're located quite often.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Go ahead and show us what
Go
you
ahead.
have.
Okay, let me do this. This is my brother's funeral. And this was the pastor that was giving the sign of the cross. But you can see my brother's picture on the table, and above the white flowers on the third slot up, you can see a very faint orb.
Mhm.
And that used to be brighter and has faded over time. He passed away, I believe, in 2014, but he was attending his funeral
Yeah.
that day. Let's go to the next one. And this is my mom and dad's
Oh.
funeral.
Mhm.
And this was my son hugging me, and see the orb down by
Yes.
Bob's leg. So
Yes.
they're always around. And those are not moisture.
Right.
Okay. This is
Oh,
my
there's
mom and
one.
dad's funeral.
Yeah.
And see the big orb in the middle?
Yeah.
I have no doubt that's my mom. And if you see the little blue orb sitting on the table, the green table in front,
Yep.
okay, I believe that was my dad. And you'll see how it ties together. Dad was a watcher. He loved to watch. Mom loved to be in the middle of the crowd because she was family, so she was in the middle. Now you see that they were entering the
Yeah.
room. This obviously is my dad, but you see my mom kind of right here.
Mhm.
Mhm. And it's up above again.
Mhm.
And I put this one in. This is so you can see there was nothing on the table, no
Right.
round object on the table. And this is me in my room with
Oh.
my guide right there.
Yes.
I was staying with my mom and dad at the time. And this is my son and his daughter, one of my sons. This is Kurt, the one I saw the image of.
Yeah.
Um, with the orb on his arm, above his arm at least. And then you can see the orb is now at the ceiling watching.
Mhm.
And now it went to James Van Prague's
Oh,
mediumship
wow.
uh, a reading for Gaia TV. And he was getting ready, so he must have been calling in the spirits. But you can see down here and on this lady with the
Yeah.
blue shirt, you can see the beautiful orb right there with the 3 different shades of blue. And another one underneath that has a rainbow. And then another one under that has kind of a rainbow and turquoise, the colors, in addition to the ones up above. He was calling in all the spirits for the readings. A lot of them were there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
This again, and you can see the one that was on the bottom has now moved up here into the blonde's hair. So that must have been for her.
Right.
It seemed to stick right with her. Again, my daughter, my granddaughter, and you can see above, there's the orb hanging above. So they're usually normally above and behind or to the side because they're following, they're not interfering, they're watching.
She's really cute.
You see, it was her birthday again. See it above her head.
Yep.
She's right here next to my daughter. And there are in the distance, you can vaguely can see orbs back there above us too. And this, my son, that was there for the pumpkins. And you can see the orb behind him up here
Mhm.
and his guide. And then these were in his bedroom. I'm showing this one because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
This next one, you see one in the mirror.
Yeah. I see it.
Then you see this brighter one, and then you can see it reflecting in the mirror.
Mhm. Right. That's how you know it's not dust.
Yeah. Again. So he had a lot of spirit activity going on there. And my sister, we're at my mom and dad's, and my sister Diane wanted to take a picture with Doug, so we pulled his picture over so we could get a picture. And he joined us. You
Oh.
could see him in my hair.
Yeah.
And this is my family. You could see the orb up above here.
Yep.
And then my granddaughter again in the little orb right here. They can shrink and go in whatever size they want to go. And usually when they're smaller, they're brighter because they're more compact. The
Mm.
energy is pulled together. This is my kids who came over for dinner, but there's nothing there. However, if you take it from this direction, you can see Gina has one in front of her.
Yeah.
Again, more up in the air above the kids there.
Mhm.
And another one above my son.
I
And this
see it.
is my granddaughter. We got her was her birthday. She had been playing, like crazy, but we stopped over because she had gotten a new bed and we brought new bedding for it. And see the orb here beside her.
Yeah.
And then it's moved over to between her and my son.
Mhm.
And now it's above the bed. And now it's over here. She's starting to jump, so it's probably watching to make sure she's okay.
Uh-huh.
And now here she stops, and here you can see it at the very top coming down. So they're around us a lot. She got it over here. So, but you kind of have to watch these things on a large computer screen, laptop or tabletop, because you don't get the details when you are looking on a tablet or a phone. Here's again, they're around. She just loves the fact that I've seen angels. So here, I think that's pretty much it. They're right there. I think that's the last one. But I think those things are fascinating. Now, did you want me to show the video?
Please, and actually
Nope.
what I'm gonna do too is, I have an awesome picture of an orb I took at Natural Bridge in Virginia. It was so big. I mean, I just don't think you can call it a lens flare. It's
Uh,
huge and it's bright purple. Like it's at the Natural Bridge where George Washington once sort of staked that land as his, and it's a whole and there was a whole Native American, settlement all around there, and I took this picture, and the orb is so big and so purple. My dad said, "What is that?" I'm like, "It's an orb," and he goes, "Ugh, people who believe in that are silly or something." I don't know what he said, but I went, "No, it's a spirit orb." So this is where we transition from talking about orbs and looking at photos of them to Janet showing us the video of her father passing away, in which you can actually see his spirit leaving his body.
Okay. Now this is my dad was passing away. He was very peaceful. I had been in Austria at the time when I heard the imminent news of his death. And since I know we're energy, and I was international travel isn't fast. So I put myself out into the ethers that night and I said, Dad? And he said, Jan? I said, yeah. I said, am I going to make it in time? And he said, I'll try, but it'll be close. So the universe worked everything out. The next day, there was a flight that isn't ordinarily there, and it wasn't fantastically expensive like it normally is. It was normal price. I got on that plane. I got in early to Denver, was able to catch an earlier flight to Boise. My sister-in-law picked me up, and then on the way down to the care center where they were, um, I started getting texts from my sister who was with him. Hurry, he's failing, he's failing. So I looked at Judy and I said, he said it would be uh, close. So I was able to spend 7 hours with him, and I was beside him sleeping in a recliner, and I woke up at 1:30 in the morning for some unknown reason. I felt like I should be taking pictures. And I believe that was my dad who had woke me up and was giving me the incentive to take pictures because I had taken care of them for the last 5 years of their life. And they had promised to share with me everything they had experienced during seen, touched, felt, smelled, anything during their dying process. So I believe he was doing that with this. So you'll see, I'm going to back it up to 9.16. Let's go here. And on this first one, at the very beginning, you'll see it an energetic form zip out of his body. But there's no television on in his room at the time, no windows because he's on an interior room and because there's units on either side of him. The window was in my mom's room in a separate room. So there was no outside uh, phenomena that could have caused this. There was no street on that side of the building, no parking area on that side of the building. So, and the window shades were pulled for the night. So look at the very beginning of this video. Did you see it?
I saw it.
Let's back that up from again one more time. There it goes.
It
Now,
looks like Aurora Borealis.
yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? And it
Yeah.
kind of rays, but it goes to the right. Now, I asked Bob, my boyfriend from Austria, to slow it down. Say,
Oh.
can you slow that very same segment down so I can get a closer look at it? And so he did that. And let's go to that. That's at 10:58. Okay. And then at 10:58, you'll see this is a quarter of the speed. So it's going to be a little bit slower, but it changes directions. And when you see this, energy. You can see it is in the air because it's on his clothing and on the bed as it moves across. So it's
Mhm.
not being reflected off the wall. You see it go to the left this time?
Yes.
It's because the spinning tire phenomena um, a spinning tire goes so fast, it seems to go change directions. You ever seen
Mm.
that
No,
before?
I haven't.
It's on YouTube. I've, just Google that, but you'll see that the eye cannot handle all that motion. So it blocks out certain things and then it seems to change direction.
Wow.
But this makes sense because now he's going to mom. Mom was in that direction. There it
Ah,
goes. So had whipped out going in one direction when in actuality he was going the other direction. So, and
wow.
then while I was filming this, interesting enough, I tell the story about him dying and mom dying. When I'm telling the story of how mom said Dick, because before she died, she died 9 days after dad. But during her dying process, she saw my dad, and I asked her what he looked like. But as she said, Dick, in the upper left-hand corner up here, you see another orb come down into this area. And I have no doubt that was my dad making his appearance on
Yeah.
this video so that he could show that he still does live on.
Oh, that is
So,
so
but you notice that
beautiful.
that energy was a light blue and
Yes.
his orb was blue on the table.
Wow. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. That's so beautiful, and I hope that it brought you some peace during that time.
Oh,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know that you know that they're not gone and you know that you'll see them, but I know that doesn't ease the grief process of losing someone in this life with us, but it's so
Mhm,
beautiful that you had the serenity to be able to um video that moment and be at peace and be a part of that process with him, and that's such a gift. um,
yeah, it
and
was.
as we sort of near the end, I know we could talk for hours about things, but I just wanted to find out, after your near death, I'm not sure at which point, after which near death experience you began to notice that you had developed deeper intuition. I don't know if you want to call it mediumship skills, psychic abilities. When did you start to notice that you were tuning in all the time or, at different times?
It started after the car accident. Could not sleep. I needed less sleep. And that's one of a side effect that you have sleeping disorders then because they come to you, seems the veil is thinner at night. And so you feel them. I didn't know what it was, but after the third one, then yeah, a lot of strange things happened. The telephone would start ringing and nobody'd be on the phone. And I didn't know what was going on. So finally, caller ID came out. It was in the time with caller ID. And so when I got these calls, I wrote down the number and called it back immediately because I wanted to know what was going on. And every time I called it back, I would get that recording. This is a non-working number. Please check your number and try again. It was driving me crazy. What's going on? But the electrical field was setting that off, and also would make the yard light flicker. And I would tell my husband we need to get that fixed. The oil company had put it there, so it was like a street light. And after I left, after we get separated, he said it works fine. So it was obviously my energy because when I was in the house and I would look out, it was solid. But when I was outside, it would flicker. And so I didn't know what that was about because I hadn't learned yet. And I also was in the library on the floor with the dog. And I was looking through the window out onto the porch and I saw a cat, but the cat was translucent and it had seemingly come from the basement and was walking around the washer, dryer, and water heater. And we locked eyes and it saw us. And because the dog saw it too. And then it rotated its head back, turned, and walked through the solid door. So yeah, strange things were happening. And I'd be sitting in a restaurant and I would hear a voice say, Jan. and I'd look around and nobody was there. And then I'd hear Jan, and I'd look around, and nobody was. People were thinking I was crazy. So I finally ignored it because I didn't know what it was. And I also could sense people's emotions, their real feelings, even though they thought they were masking them. I knew what they were. So then I finally, as things progressed, I started to learn um, more about this stuff. Then I went to the James von Prague
Right.
school, mediumship school, and did that.
That's so
So
cool. That's something I really wanna do. I mean, I've taken a lot of classes, but I'd like when COVID settles down,
yeah,
whenever that may be, I'd love to be able to go study at Arthur Findlay or with a group, with a lot with that energy in the room that you showed in those photos.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
do you actually practice mediumship now? Or is it
I
something.
don't now
Yeah,
because I'm doing this and I've got the
yeah,
book I'm writing on. I just don't have time for that. But once I get the book done, it's a possibility because it was fun. It
yeah,
was, and I can put myself in somebody. I
yeah.
can, if they want their aura, checked, I can I can look at the colors of their chakras and see if they're working right. And um, I can feel from the inside, I can feel the shape of the aura. And if it's, if they're living too much in the future, or if they have memories from the past, or this one beautiful lady I was practicing on. Um, I was doing a session with her, and I said, I feel that the absence of a male figure. And uh, I said, "Are you divorced?" And she said, "No." He kind of seems like he's, she was joking. He's kind of acts like he's out of it sometimes, but she was laughing. No, but so I told her there's something about April, and I feel a burning sensation in my um, uh, lower abdomen. I said, "Are you going through the uh, change of life? Something's going on there." And she said, "Well, I don't know if I am." But what it ended up being is she had an infection that she had to have treated that that manifested itself a week later. So I
Wow.
was sensing that. And then I told her, I said, "I hear a little voice over my shoulder saying I'm handsome." And what it was the male figure was the baby that was stillborn. And her the I said, "There's a young man here dressed in Mexican clothing, and he's showing me his foot. His foot out is out toward me. He's got patent leather shoes on it, and he's a dancer." Well, what it was is she had gotten to hold her child, but she never got to touch his feet. And so she always regretted that her entire life. And now he wanted her to know that he was dancing in heaven. And she said she realized later that she had been at his graveside with their daughter a week previous when he had the anniversary of his death. And she said, "I bet he was handsome." So that I'm
Yeah.
handsome was the connection to that time frame.
Oh, that is so
So
beautiful. It's amazing what spirit brings through. It's incredible. I know last
yeah,
week I did a reading and I said, "Your grandfather's saying he's showing me that he taught you electronics and that you're doing something with that." And the kid said, "Yeah, I'm in engineering school now." And I said, "He's saying, that's my boy, that's my boy." And he said, he started crying. He said he was in Colombia. He said, he always said, es mi niño. And he said that was like his catchphrase that he said all the time. So to me, it just seemed like something any father or grandfather might say, but it was actually something he said to him regularly. And I just am like, that's so cool. I mean, they say that one thing that to me seems so commonplace, but to the sitter, they know exactly what that means, and that's their connection that's happening just
right.
through me. It's just they're just using me to say, "You know I'm here because you know I used to always say that to you," and it's just the most amazing, beautiful thing.
Yeah, when I was doing that reading, I kept getting the initials B and D, B and D, and I didn't know what that was. And so I didn't tell her. But then she said his name was, we called him Baby Darren. I said, "Oh my gosh, that
Oh,
was the B and D. I was
yeah,
getting a B and D and I didn't know which one to give you." Um, so I should have given her both and
yeah.
it would have made that connection,
But
Baby Darren. Uh-huh.
yeah, and that's what people who don't do mediumship or haven't aren't familiar with it should understand is that it doesn't come through as full sentences or
Yeah,
complete knowing. It's like a game of charades. They show you little because it's a lot of energy for them to
do
slow
it.
their energy down and give you something just a little bit. And so they're giving you the littlest bit that will make you that will prompt you to say what the sitter will understand. So it's not it's hard for them to get words and names through. It's hard for us to receive that a lot of times. Occasionally, it'll come, and then but a lot of times you won't, so they're giving you that's why a medium says, "Is there a J name?" It's not because they're guessing, it's because they can hear a little bit of it's like someone speaking through, like, a million tunnels, and you're catching just the little tail end of it or the little beginning of it, and it's so cool how you can just faintly hear it, but it comes through just strong enough so that you say exactly what the sitter needs and understands, and it's just the coolest thing. It amazes me every day.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And
oh, go ahead.
those initials can sometimes be the people in the audience, because I
Yeah.
went to one place and I was getting a D, and it says, and David was sitting in front of me, and this was a man that I had with me around 50 years old, and he said he didn't have anybody like that. But I was being drawn to this part of the room, and so there was a table back there, and I said, "Does anybody this make sense to anybody else?" And they said, "No, but my name's Deborah." And I said, "So does this man have some kind of connection to you?" Because he's making me feel like he's fishing. I kept feel like I was fishing. And they started laughing. It was her husband that had passed away, and
Oh,
he loved to fish.
yeah,
So he was trying
so
to get the
cool.
attention of Deborah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So
Uh-huh.
I would like you to share what is coming up for you. What do you want to share? I'm plugging your book, Dying to See.
Trying
What
to
else
see.
are you
Oh, let
working
me
on?
show that.
Yes, yes. And I'll put links at the bottom
Yeah.
where you can buy the book. What else do you want to share today? It could be things that you're working on. It can also be just something that you want everyone to know, or it could be both.
I'm working on, like I said, this next book. And if anybody out there does have a near death experience that they would like to submit, they can go to my janettarantino.com website, to the contact page, and send me a contact and how to get a hold of you. And we'll talk, and you can type it up, send it to me, and I'll have the editors edit it, and I'll talk to you about questions, maybe to fill in some details, and we'll get it put in the book so that you've done what you feel that you need to do to give you some healing. Um, and then after that, I would really like to share my story in the senior centers, to help the people there. After being there with my mom and dad during the last weeks of their life, the people there they need to hear this kind of stuff too.
Yes.
Um, that there really is something going on there. So that's my next calling. And then back to life at normal and doing videos on all this stuff,
Oh,
the
fantastic.
fun stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I love that you're doing that, that you're planning to speak with seniors. I know I spoke a lot with my grandmother before she passed. She really she would be very receptive and then tell my mom that she didn't believe any of I was saying, but then she would tell me like, "Oh, I asked your grandfather to send me a sign and I saw the fan spin," or I don't know if she was just sort of indulging me, but I really and I tried not to push it on her. I just kept saying, "You'll see. You'll see." And I think it was almost like she was afraid to hope, but I think there was a little part of her that was happy. I think she was afraid. She had pulmonary fibrosis and it was just a long, painful passing that just went on for too long. And she kept saying, "I'm so ready to go. Please just end this." And even though it was a terrible way to die, I just wanted to at least share with her what I knew. to give her a little bit of hope and release a little bit of the fear. And so now I always talk to her in spirit and ask her for signs. And I'm like, I told you. And I just think, look, you can't force it on someone who's not already open to it. But I think if you can just plant that spark, which is also why I want to do this channel and interview people like you, because there is so much fear of death because it's the unknown. And
Yeah,
none of us will really ever know until we get there exactly what it is. But I think people like you have the ability to share what you do know, and the fact that there are thousands upon thousands of people like you, and
there
the fa-
are.
and the reason I'm sharing stories from people like you is, I've said this before, I don't just interview anyone who says they had a near death experience. I'm drawn to the people who are very believable, very who can tell their story in a very organized and succinct way, and the details don't change, because I don't want I think it's important to do this topic justice by and not to say that people who aren't as articulate or eloquent don't have important stories to share. I just think I'm trying to get as many people like you to tell their stories, because I think it makes people think twice. Well, this woman is clearly not out of her mind. This
Yeah, yeah,
clearly is very normal average person who says this happened to her. And once you start to see that it's not just one person, it's thousands who have the same story. And if people who would say that it's a trick of the mind, it's just a brain's way of protecting you as you're dying, but then why does everyone have almost the exact story? The details change based on the person's perceptions, belief system, but it's always similar themes. And to me, that's just so compelling.
yeah,
And not for the sake of you being believed as much as it's important that um, I know it's not as important that you personally and people don't think you're, a scam artist or something. It's important that it's believed because it's an important message that I think we
yeah,
really
and
need to hear.
it's not only about death.
Right.
My book focuses a lot on life and what we're
Yeah.
here for, because we do have contracts to work with people, and we need to learn that. If you write down your life in a timeline with the prominent moments and the deja vu moments are moments that are planned and you're kind of on the right path. So if you can correlate that with something that happened, you'll see the people that affect your life, like um, uh, the soul painter,
Yeah.
Teresa Dunwell. Uh, she affected my life greatly because of the painting she did. James Demos, the medium who told me who my guide was, he affected my life because he spurred me on to develop my intuition. I said, I can't do that. But everybody is born to do it. And they have that inner knowing all the time, especially when they do something, they say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. It's because they heard their inner voice, that inner knowing, but they chose not to listen to it. And it's so easy to practice and develop that. We all
Yeah.
have it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your energy and your insight with us to keep that message just to keep that message flowing, and to keep reminding people that there's so much more to this life, and that life really isn't life is eternal, that there is no death, that death is an illusion. I think it's such a beautiful and important message, and I'm just so honored to have had the opportunity to meet you and speak with you today.
Thank you. And I just want to remind everybody to always think positive and make your life a mystical adventure instead of, uh, of a boring one. So look for the beauty.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Janet. Take care.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye.